Masterforce has been sharing workshops, seminars, and development courses with our community for over 35 years. In 2010, we launched the Masterforce International Leadership Academy online, creating the possibility of providing courses worldwide. This same year, we began offering the Masterforce Life Coach Certification course, and we now have hundreds of Masterforce certified life coaches worldwide, including Switzerland, Puerto Rico, Bali, Tanzania, as well as here in the United States. You will hear from several of our coaches this evening or this week as well. This is the 17th season that we are presenting Ignite Your Soul Connection. For 6 nights, we are sharing our personal insights into what it means to be on the path of self-mastery. We always offer these teachings during the winter solstice, which is one of the most amazing manifestation periods of our time. When we are clear, open, and receptive, we generate a magnetic vibration that will bring to us all that we envision. The Path of Self-Mastery is an event designed to assist us in preparing our space for this season of magic and magnificence. Each night, there will be a different topic, a different speaker, and a different vibe, all of which is designed to expand your horizons and bring you to the highest version of your best self. We look forward to sharing this amazing gift with you. Thank you for joining us. Stay tuned. Good evening. This is Friday, and it is session number 6, the final episode of The Path to Self-Mastery. For those of you who have joined us this week, I hope that you have been able to take something away with you that will make a difference to your life and those around you for eternity, right? Because that's why we do this work. And I can only be just so grateful for the coaches that have dedicated their time, energy, and attention to this project. We've been doing this work for what did we say, 17 seasons? But it's actually, we started in 2010 producing the show, but we do it both at the winter solstice and the summer solstice. So that's how we get to 17 seasons. I also want to acknowledge Alanda Gregory, who has been the most amazing producer this season. It has been such ease to work with her and to be present each night. Thank you for making that load just a little bit lighter for me this time. I really appreciate that. And then also, I'd like to invite you listening, those of you who are listening, those of you who listen later, to really go ahead and grab some of the Masterforce merchandise. It's just a fun way of actually talking about the work and really expressing that you too are taking on mastering your life force. And also, it supports us continuing to do this work and not having to ask you to pay for it. So thank you. Now, we finish off this conversation talking about the most meaningful aspect of all of our lives, relationships. And I am excited that Dr. Sonja is here. She is a fabulous coach. She is our ultimate professor. And we just really are grateful that she is taking time to be with us. Dr. Sonja, how are you this evening?
Good evening. Good evening. I am doing well. How are you, Moots?
I am wonderful. You look just beautiful. I love the whole Het Heru. Come on, Het Heru. You got the memo. We love when you read the memos, right?
Absolutely.
So thank you so much. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself, tell people who you are, what you do, where you live, and
Sure.
give a little bit of history so they can know who they're listening to and why they should listen.
Absolutely. Well, my name is Dr. Sonja Jones-Manson. I am from Chicago, but I now currently reside in Northern Virginia, right outside of DC. Been here since 2021. Um, Professionally, what I do in my daytime to pay my bills, I I work for the federal government, the U.S. Department of Education, doing education, innovation, and research work. I'm really excited about my job. It's what brought me out here to Virginia, and now I also just finished my first term as an adjunct professor at Trinity Washington University. Teaching introduction to psychology, so I enjoy working with the young ladies in that all-girls school. It's a minority serving institution, so I enjoy service. I love working there. So that's kind of what I do in my day to day, as well as my personal work, which is working on my organization called the Humanization Affair, which basically focuses on balance. Balance with individuals, but balance also with organizations. So basically, wherever there is inequity or marginalization, that is a space where I step in and help create a path towards equity and, of course, less marginalization. So that's kind of what I do. I've been a Master Force life coach since 2015. My husband and I went through the program together after we met at a party. Friend's party. I think you share the same birthday as Chanel, or your birthday. So, or he was giving.
No,
I forget what.
no, he's an Aquarius. I could not be an
Oh,
Aquarius, but
that's right. He's a February baby. That's
yeah,
right.
he's just a very good friend. But the reason I'm laughing is because your husband and I were chopping it up all night, all night. We just chopping it up, and you over there like, who is this woman sitting there talking to my husband? You know,
I've never seen this lady before.
right?
I've seen everybody at the party except for this lady. I was like, what is happening? But
And,
they were having a great conversations, and I
yeah,
just
and you
and
walked over, and I think he said, "We're gonna be like you. We're gonna take this class or something." Say what?
yeah, I was not part of the conversation, but I got in the conversation and
Yeah.
listened, and spirit speaks to spirit, and it all resonated. And we were looking for something at the time that we can do in addition to our 9 to 5s, where we can kind of tap into this desire to serve and kind of work with other people. And it was just really timely for me. In 2012, I had gone through a really low point and dark place. And so I was uh, beginning to resurface. And then I ran
Mm,
into Moot at this party at the first of the year in 2015.
mm.
And we signed up and we
Yep.
enjoyed it. We loved the experience of the the journey that we had to take.
Yeah, and I think we actually probably have about 8 married couples that are coaches through Master Force, and that speaks volumes to me. I don't know what it speaks to them, but to me, it speaks volumes. You know, so
Mhm.
thank you for that. I appreciate your opening to that.
Sure.
So now, Dr. Sandra, you're finishing up a long week of amazing conversations,
Man. Yeah.
right? And actually everything that we do is to support us in how we relate to other people. So how would you bring this all together so that we can utilize this information and make it make sense to us on a day-to-day basis?
Hmm.
Yeah.
So first, I want to start by setting the stage around the word relationship, because
Mhm.
sometimes that word can trigger different thoughts and ideas for different people.
Yeah,
And so, sometimes people think of relationships just as romantic
that's
relationships,
right.
or just as the relationships with their family or their friends. But for the rest of this conversation, when I'm talking about relationship, I'm talking about the word, like the spirit of the word itself. And so, of course, I had to look it up.
Yeah.
And break the word down. So, relation is the act of talking or relating in words, bringing back or restoring.
Hmm.
The word ship is just it's a form of a word. It's a word element that basically means the quality or the condition of being. So
Mm.
we're going to talk about the quality and condition of how we talk or relate in words to ourselves and to others? How do we bring back and restore
Yes.
to ourselves and to others? That is what it means to be in relationship.
Mm.
That is what it means to be in relationship. And the word relate itself means to bring something into connection with something else. So again, just to underscore and punctuate that, we're going to be talking about how are we bringing ourselves into connection with ourselves? How are we bringing ourselves into connections with others? And so you may be wondering, like, well, okay, so all the things we heard this week, how does it relate? And if you were present to one or two or all of the conversations this week, if you watched the videos or were here live, there are some common themes that emerged throughout the week. And so just I'm going to give a quick recap of some of those themes, and because honestly it's just they all underscore what relationship is about.
Yes.
So
Come on, doctor. Let's do it.
we're here to master ourselves, right? That
Yep.
was We are here to master ourselves. Remember the definition I just gave you of relationship: connecting back to yourself. How do you relate to yourself in talking, in action, and words? um, some of the things we were told to do to master ourselves was to keep an open mind, listen to be inspired, to write, journal, take notes, to observe, to explore, right? To
Mhm.
practice mastery in each area of our lives. So, of our life quadrant. And we talked about the life quadrant. I know you heard Moot talk about it. I give it to you again. There's your mental, your emotional, your physical, and your spiritual self. Those four areas make up what we refer to as the life quadrant. And so, practice mastering each area of those. And you heard you got at least a good hour and a half of how to do that in all of those quadrants this week, right? Um, don't try to eat the whole elephant. So you're not
Mm.
going to try to master all four of these things at the same time. And I'm going to talk more about that today as well. But we're going to mind the intersections of them. I'm going to talk about thinking about the intersections, because I'm all about, I told you I work with balance. I'm all about flow. And so when you're dealing in flow, it's not one thing at a time. There are points of overlap.
Yes.
Being present, breathing, receiving, meditating, relaxing, connecting with nature, using your reminders, whether it's your phone, whether it's your crystal or candles or your altars or your rituals, to ground yourself in the work that you're doing, to be centered and open, to mind your balance energetically, and to find solitude. Also, lastly, as I turn my page here, to move, to play, to detox, to hydrate, and to integrate high quality nutrition.
Mhm.
So if you go back to any of these videos and you want to know, well, how am I going to master my emotions, my mental, my spiritual, my physical self? I just ran off a list of things, but it wasn't just one person. Each person, these were the common themes and the threads that emerged throughout the week. And all of those things are relevant to today's conversation as well.
Mhm. Wonderful. Listen, I just heard a book. I
Well,
know
these
that.
coaches wrote it this week, so they wrote that book.
Yes, that's exactly what I heard, Dr. Sandra. I'm like, oh my goodness, this is a whole collaborative right here, you know? Yes. Okay, so now keep going. Go ahead. I'm going to let you have the stage.
Okay, so let's start talking about relationship. I'm gonna get my notes up here as I'm toggling through different screens.
However you want to do it, it's fine with me.
Thank
We're listening. We're listening.
Okay, so I already talked about like the emphasis on the wholeness of the work of mastery. And so how does this kind of come forth in relationship with ourselves and others? So I want to just emphasize again that wholeness is such a big word. All right, when you hear like mastering your whole self, and if you're in tune and you begin to think about, well, man, there's so many different aspects of myself, that can feel overwhelming. It implicates a lot of work, right? And I said before, we're not trying to eat this elephant all at once in one big swallow, but taking it one bite at a time and giving attention to one area at a time. And the first thing that we can do is to take an assessment and to do an inventory of the four areas of your mental, emotional, spiritual, and your physical space. Do an assessment to understand, like, what is the biggest challenge for you? What is the biggest challenge for you in those areas? And either deciding to go for the small win or addressing a big challenge. Maybe there's one area you feel stronger in than the other. You can choose, and that's up to how you prefer to tackle problems. There's also the importance of how each of those areas overlap and interplay, and how they show up in relationship with yourselves and others. What's
Mm-hmm.
going to happen is once you do that assessment and you begin to pay attention to your relationship with yourself and your relationship with others, you begin to notice what's being mirrored back to you, specifically when it comes to your relationship with others.
Mm.
In your relationship with others, the role of others is to be a mirror of what you need to work on in yourself. And I'm starting talking about others, but the most important relationship that you can cultivate, and the primary one that you should be cultivating, is the one with yourself. So from this point on, as I'm talking about cultivating relationships with yourself and understanding that your relationship with others are mirroring back to you your relationship with yourself, whether that's your relationship in love, in work, or your friendships, or your family as well.
Hmm. That's a great point. Yeah, and I'm listening for that mirror work too, because a lot of us, especially as parents, we tend to want our children to do something, but we're not demonstrating that.
Mm-hmm.
So asking them to do something, they don't have a mirror.
Mm-hmm.
But if we're doing what we ask them to do, they can actually see it right there immediately. But if they don't see it, that's usually when we get the pushback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes both ways too, because like when you think of how other relationships with adults, what's being mirrored back to you, it's usually something that you want, that you long for, you want from yourself, or that that you feel like you're missing from yourself. So
Mm-hmm.
that absence, that thing that maybe someone else is doing that bothers you, is the thing that you do to yourself that bothers you. So that's the
Yes.
mirror. Or
Yes.
it can be something that they're doing that you admire and you long for in yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Whether it's something that you miss, or whether it's something that you admire, it's still indicative of something that you're not doing in relationship for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And until you sit down and begin to do the work on the relationship with yourself, you're not going to get the wholeness that you seek in relationship with others. How can you have a whole relationship with someone else when you don't have a whole relationship with yourself? I think yesterday, or I think it was Dr. Tammy that was just talking about kind of what you give out and what comes back to you,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm.
So you can't give out wholeness if you're not whole.
Yeah.
If you're not connecting back to yourself, that relationship word, right? This act of reconnecting with yourself, bringing yourself back to yourself, being in relationship with yourself has to be at the forefront, and it has to happen first.
You're pointing to something that many of us struggle with in relationship, because what we say is, I want people to love me just as I am, but we don't love ourselves just as we are. We
Right.
are our worst critics.
Mm-hmm.
And then we want somebody else to prove their love to us. But even if they proved it, we can't receive it because we haven't given it to ourselves.
Mm-hmm. and
Wow.
we and we get offended and we feel some kind of way, and we get upset when they don't love us or treat us the way that we feel like we should be treated. We're overlooking the fact that they're just mirroring back to us the deficit within ourselves.
Yeah.
We're really mad at ourselves because we're not giving it to ourselves, but we project it and we put it off onto them. But I mean, the truth of the matter is, that's that mirror, that's that longing. They're
Mm-hmm.
not giving you something that you desire so much. But we're not taught to kind of go inside and look, right? I think
Right.
everything around us, people talk about the program all week, right?
Yep.
Everything around us is about external. Even if you think about how you learn about relationship, at what point in life generally does the average person learn about, I'm not talking about all the enlightened folks here on the call. I'm talking about the average person who may not have been exposed to what you know. But at what point do you really learn about being in a relationship with yourself?
You don't.
At an early age, it's about being in a relationship with your parents or
Or
your
sibling.
siblings or your family. And then when you're at school, it's relationship with your class and your teacher and the administrators. And then when you go to college, it's relationships with your other classmates, and it
Mhm.
just gets bigger, and your professors. Build your network, be in relationships with others. Then you go to work, into your job, you have to be in
Yeah,
relationship with your coworkers.
yeah.
And so everything becomes about, everything about relationships becomes about, like, what am I giving to other people?
Well, it becomes people pleasing, doesn't it?
That's what I'm getting to. That people pleasing.
That becomes people pleasing all day.
And it's like, and it's normalized.
Yes, it is.
People pleasing is normalized. And looking in this talk about being in a relationship with yourself, because I know when I started doing the work of being in a relationship with myself, the barrier for me was to get over the feeling of selfishness. And it was so, so strong. It was
Yeah,
so strong.
yeah,
I was like, but I'm a servant. I love people. I love to give. And there's nothing wrong with that. And what I kept hearing as my coaches were encouraging me to, put myself in the center and do a certain type of self-work. I kept hearing, well, it's not good for you. Like, I kept interpreting that as, don't give, don't do the things that you think is good, do
mhm.
this thing that you think is selfish. And it took a lot of work for me to
Yes.
kind of go in and understand the value of that, and understand that what was behind that, at least for me, um, there was some self-loathing.
Yeah.
There was the need for external validation. If I'm not being in relationship with other people and I'm trying to be in relationship with myself, where do I get my validation from?
Mhm.
Where am I going to get it from?
Mhm.
Right. And so having to just break the chains and the connection between, myself and that need to be externally validated. And once you go inside, like, that's one of the things that you begin to learn. I know you talked about affirmations and things like that,
Mhm.
but that internal validation has to become um, foundational to your
Yeah,
work, being in relationship with yourself. And
yeah.
for those who feel like, well, I don't care what nobody think, some people have the attitude, well, like, well, I don't need anybody else to validate me. I would challenge you to look at your relationships and um, check in with yourself about what your internal reactions are when someone does something that you think they should not do.
Mhm. Or when someone says no to you.
Mm-hmm.
That's the big one, because we all of us have that concept of being a people pleaser from our childhood, because
Yep.
that's what we learned.
Program.
And when people say no to us, it's almost immediate rejection,
Mm-hmm.
but it also gives us an opportunity to let people be where they are too in that, and
Yes.
then, but when you were talking, I kept thinking of the our soul has a longing for us.
Mm. Oh, yes.
Our soul is constantly, and the only time that we connect is in our sleep, but we're not conscious of it
Yep.
because we're asleep. But our soul is our true companion. But most of us don't know how to even nurture the soul or hear the soul. So
Yeah.
that's where that huge disconnection. And at one point, I know I thought that I was going to learn about that in church, you know, but I think that they're just as disconnected as we are, and that, we're human. So yeah, we're all human.
And that pathway to self-discovery through the traditional church, it has an abrupt end. Like,
Yeah.
it never quite gets you there. And I definitely think the traditional church has a role and a
Yeah.
place
Yeah.
in people's journeys and pathway.
Hmm.
But the there's a disconnect between, like, I don't understand how you can get to self mastery when the focus is always outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And it's about, and what you learn about relationship within that setting is, how do I do or don't do things that will bring me external validation from an
Mhm.
external source.
Wow.
That's what you're learning. And I mean, you get in that thing and you embrace it and you own it, but you never learn, how do I do or not do the things where, to the point where I feel validated in and of myself.
Yes. Mhm.
Right. And so you don't learn it. And so you have to break away. Like, one of the things I had to do was break all the bonds
Mm.
that connected me to external
Mm.
validation. And I'm sitting here saying, like, I just had to break all the bonds. No, it was hard.
Yeah. Oh, it wasn't no easy break.
it,
That's
it,
right.
it was not easy. It was not easy work. I literally had to do energetic visualization
Yeah.
work of, and I would, will call on, my guides and my angels
Yeah.
to disconnect the energetic strings, and I would see them as these little silvery
Yeah.
curly strings. That's how
Yeah.
I envision them.
I
That
do too.
would
Yeah.
connect
Mm-hmm.
me to whatever it was that
And couldn't
was
them.
the
That's
source of
right.
external validation. And I had to have those strings disconnect, cut,
Mm.
and at the point where they were connected to me, I had to have those entry points completely dissolve and heal over.
Wow.
And that took probably a year of work, because just when I thought I was okay and didn't need external validation, something came up and I was like, oh, that's another source of external validation.
Mm-hmm.
And it was from everywhere. It was from everywhere. It was from my parents, it was from my children. To realize that you, as a parent, that you thrive off of external
Oh
validation.
my God. My daughter oh my God. I'm like, oh, Father God, please don't let me get triggered by my, it's like, where did that come from? But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, because you need, somebody to say every different aspect of yourself. You have to examine it and see, in that particular aspect, where am I looking for external validation, as
Yes.
your professional self, as your friend self, as your lover self, as your parent self.
Mm.
Where do you look for external validation in those different aspects of yourself, and how does that show up? And then go in to do the work, like, because you cannot fully love yourself if you don't break those threads that connect you to the need for external validation. It's too contradictory. It doesn't, like, the two don't go together.
I remember reading something a few years ago that said the hardest place for a man to be himself is with his wife until his mother dies.
Hmm.
Isn't that interesting? And that points to that, because what? Who, sons, and just like sons get their validation from their mother, and women get their validation from their fathers.
Truth.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's only when those relationships, because if you don't cut them, they're still there, but in some form, then yeah. Oh, this is good. That just triggered something, because I hadn't seen that until you just said that.
Yeah.
The importance of us breaking away from those mother father roles and being with our mates is going to
Yes.
strengthen. Yeah, that's what it
And
strengthens.
and I think that's a really good segue into what I have been labeling as being the me within the we. Right?
Yes.
So on my journey in being in relationship with myself, it was just kind of fraught with, like, my natural response to challenges is flight.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it gotta go. Remember, I don't remember on Color Purple when they were fighting in the bar, he closed that piano. He was like, "Uh-oh, time to go." That's me
That's how fast you move.
every time. I'm like, time to go.
Mm-hmm.
That's my response to challenges. That's how, I go into flight mode. And so when I started on this journey of being in relationship with myself, and I didn't do it alone. Like, I had wonderful coaches who were supporting me through. I had
Mm-hmm.
access to you, Moot, and I can tap in when I had questions.
Mm-hmm.
But as I was going on the journey, my preference was to let me learn how to be in relationship with myself by myself,
Yes.
because that I know I can do. I can isolate.
Yep.
I can go in, I can shut it down, I can do all the work. But I'm married. I'm married, right? I'm in this relationship, and the relationship itself, it was rocky at the time. And so I
Mhm.
was like, hey, this could be it. This
Yeah.
could be the
Yep.
moment.
Yep. Because
And
I
I'm
can go here too. Yeah, I can fly.
right. And I'm listening for spirit. And spirit never, 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 never gave me that green light.
No.
And I was waiting on it. And I was like, now? And they're like, nope, now?
Mhm.
Like, nope. And what spirit finally told me was that your journey is about learning how to be in relationship with yourself while being in relationship with others.
Mhm.
Because you can be in relationship with yourself by yourself. That won't be a challenge for you.
Well,
Whereas growth.
I'm gonna tell you the reason why I nurture married couples so much is because you will not know yourself until you are vulnerable and intimately and freely inside of a loving relationship that can hurt you.
Mm. And
Okay.
that's what it was, because that flight is the protection mechanism, right?
Oh
I
yeah.
leave because I could put my wall up.
Yeah.
I don't have to worry about it. But I would not have grown to the space I am with, like, the way I love myself now
Mhm.
is it's amazing. Like, I
Yeah.
didn't know that I could
Right.
love myself the
Right.
way I
Right.
love myself. Like, I love
Isn't that wonderful?
myself. And for me to say that,
It's different. Yeah.
it's huge. It's huge for
Mhm.
me to say that, because it was sour on my tongue before, bitter
Mm.
on my tongue, because it was arrogant. All the things you're taught, especially women, especially women. It was the
Conceit, all of that.
it was
Selfish,
the opposite of what
all
a
of that.
man's supposed
That's
to be as
right.
a woman, right?
Yeah.
But I can profess that now because I do. And let me tell you, when I got to the point where I was honest with myself about, and being in a relationship with myself meant that I had to be honest with what I wanted and
Yep.
what I didn't want, which are things I was never really honest about, because I'm a good girl and I don't rock the boat.
Ooh, didn't we have to give up that good girl? I had to give up the good girl. I was like, wait a minute, the good girl don't get anything.
You don't rock the boat. You just kind of sit on stuff. You kind of let stuff slide. You turn the
Nice.
other
Oh
cheek.
yes.
And you just kind of seethe with it, and you push it down and you push it down. But when I began to be verbal
Yes.
about what it is, and first I had to figure out what I want. I didn't know. I didn't know.
That's
I didn't know what I wanted, because I hadn't checked in with those different aspects of myself, my
right.
emotional self, my physical self, my spiritual self, my mental self. I didn't understand um, what those feelings I was having when
Mm.
things were happening and I didn't like them and they were unpleasant to me. I wasn't connecting the feeling in my spirit or my emotion or the thoughts with that. So first I had to get connected to all those things we
That is
talked about
right.
this week. I
That's
had to, so
mm.
that I could understand what was showing up for me. And then I began to notice the triggers in my relationship with others. And then I had to say, okay, I'm really mad because at my husband for not seeing me. I used to be
Mm.
so mad, like, you don't see me, you don't see me, you don't see me. And then I had to go back to my mirror. Oh, I don't see myself.
Wow.
So now I got to back away from
Yep.
haranguing him for not seeing me,
Yep.
go into my corner, go do my spiritual work
Yep.
about not seeing myself, and then get to the point where I can see myself.
That is
Come
beautiful.
back to him and apologize for the way I responded,
Mhm.
and lose the expectations of him having to see me.
Isn't that beautiful?
Because as long as I see myself,
I don't care if nobody see me.
it's all right, you don't see me, because I see myself and I'm pretty good looking.
You okay?
I'm
Right.
all right.
Yes.
And
That's
then
powerful.
it also helps you understand too that in those moments when I felt like he wasn't seeing me, because mind you, he's mirroring to me, but I'm mirroring back to him too, something.
Mhm.
So I'm internalizing his stuff
Wow.
because I haven't dealt with my own.
Yeah.
So now I'm no longer internalizing what I was perceiving as some sort of angst against me. It's not the right word, but you get what I'm saying. Like something against me or something that was lacking. I'm
Right.
not internalizing anymore, because before I moved to the place where I internalize and get defensive in this relationship, I go back to my own relationship with myself.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you mentioned yesterday, I've been watching, I watched two of the videos, so I got the days look
I
confused.
know it all rolls in together after a while.
But one of the days you mentioned like how you forgave your ex-husband.
Oh
And
yes.
it wasn't for the things that, like, he still had to be held accountable for the things that he did. Because I want to be very clear as I'm saying this. I am
Mm-hmm.
not saying you let people off the hook and you don't have to hold them accountable for what they do to you. But I am saying that you be aware enough of yourself to know which parts of it are yours
Yeah.
and deal with yourself. And in this particular conversation, we're talking about when you are falling short on being in relationship with yourself, and instead of dealing with your own shortness, you go point the finger at somebody else for not giving you what you feel you need.
Mm-hmm.
Then you may owe that person an apology once you have done the work behind that.
That goes back to, how we say when you pointing a finger, is three pointing back at
Amen.
you. We take that just as a cliche. We don't realize that the truth is really valid there. And
Yeah.
you can save yourself a lot of time in a lot of relationships by when you get ready to say, why are you doing that? Instead of saying it, go here.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
Yeah.
this is showing up in my space, so it must be something that I'm doing.
Absolutely.
That's
And
powerful.
that self-talk is that self-talk has helped me a lot,
Yes.
because now I'm having a conversation with myself, because I had to build that awareness in
Mhm.
my life quadrant of myself. And so I feel those triggers. I feel, I can feel it in my spirit. It's I call it a light touch now.
Yeah.
You know,
Ooh.
I
Yeah.
can feel it in my spirit. I can feel it, the
Mhm.
thoughts.
Yep.
I know those thoughts. I'm familiar with those thoughts when they pop up in my mind. You know, the way my body feels, the tension. I might start rocking, like all the little things that I had never really paid attention to.
Wow.
So my mouth
Yes.
might get dry, my throat
Yeah.
might get tight. So those are like the signals to me that something is happening that you're not pleased with. And so
Mm.
then I go into my question. I call it I jump on the why train.
Okay.
I
Okay.
like to take the why train. Why? Why? Okay. Why? Why are you not pleased with this? And then I
Mm.
have this self-talk conversation, because I don't like it when people XYZ. Well, why don't you like that? Because and so I do it, and oftentimes, most of the time, it comes back to some work that I need to continue to do.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if that Y train takes me to a stop where it is like, okay, this person really is wronging you, then I have to have the courage to speak to it
Yes.
in that moment.
But see, look how many steps you took before you said, "Oh, I have to talk to this person." See,
Hmm.
we jumped the gun so fast, and that we let that anger just fly when most of the time you don't even have to get to the other person,
Yeah.
you know?
And I used to do that. I used to do it with my husband all the time. I used to be like, we need to talk. I'm feeling something. We need to talk. And this is the thing about learning how to be the me inside of the we,
Mhm.
because I have to do that with my husband. I did not have to learn how to be the me inside of the we with any of my other relationships, not at work, not with any of my friends, because I can always be like, I can just stop a conversation.
Yeah.
I can walk away. I don't have to comment on this thing. Like,
Yeah, but when you got to go home with them.
I can't get out this thing, right?
Mhm.
And I could try to, with your friends, sometimes you're not, you seething with your friends, you know what I'm saying? You feel a
Yeah.
certain kind of way, but you leave them, you go home, you calm down. When y'all see each other again, it's like,
It's gone.
hey.
Yeah.
But when you seething in the house with
It
the,
goes into the walls and then into the bed sheets.
it just hangs around. It's okay.
Okay. Yes. It takes its own life, just this cloud following
It
everything.
does. It does. And so you have to have that self-awareness that everyone was talking about on that path to self-mastery. It starts with self-awareness.
Mhm.
It starts with self-awareness, and all those things I talked about. I talked about in the beginning about things to do. Like, everybody gave you tools on how to move into a space of self-awareness.
Yes.
Like, so we can't just jump into let me master myself. How you gonna master what you don't know?
Yeah, hello.
Know yourself first,
Yep.
and
Yep.
then begin to master yourself.
Yes.
That is
Yeah.
the connection. That is what you bring back to yourself.
Yes. And then when you have it with yourself, it's easier to actually work with the weeds in your life.
Hmm.
And but then also I think the fallout or the end result is that you become a more peaceful person.
I was just gonna say, Moot, when you work with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
the work with the weeds in your life become easier because you have become easier.
Yeah.
I love there's an ecological model that I love so much. It's like a model of an ecology of whatever it is, whether it's
Yeah.
system
Mm-hmm.
or community. In the middle is you, like
Yeah.
that's you, the little dot in the
Yeah.
middle, and then there are circles that radiate out,
Yeah.
that broad, as your community expands, whatever it is. So I think of like when you think of being in a relationship with yourself and you're working and you're working, you begin to have peace with yourself, you
Yep.
begin to find joy with yourself, you begin to learn how to play and all of those things, and that radiates out.
Mm-hmm.
And the people who are connected to you, they begin to feel that. And
Yes.
it's one of or two things is going to happen. Your relationship with them is going to be able to shift into a more pleasant space, or those who just like you how you were are going to continue to be agitated,
Or they'll leave.
and they'll leave, right? Because they can't handle that agitation.
It's like you become your own sage.
You do. Oh my God, I love that. Being in a relationship with yourself is like being your own sage. You don't have to spend
Yeah.
another dollar
Yeah.
on a smudge stick.
Okay, because people they can't, they can't get with the vibe, and they
Yeah.
can't change it, so they be like, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's
Wow.
not an easy path. People, as you begin to be in relationship with yourself and come back to yourself and reconnect with yourself, people gonna wonder, why you change, what's wrong with you, you different. Or, they come back telling them stories, remember when, and trying to reconnect you to your old self.
I'm not there.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
That's powerful. That is so powerful. So now, when you're doing this work, and say for instance, you have a mate who is not interested. I mean, you're fortunate enough that your mate went through this work with you, but I meet so many clients who they're just doing the work. And so in them doing the work and they go home and their mate is not doing the work, they're still trying to force that relationship. How do you support people in that? Because that's still that me and we relationship,
Absolutely.
and then we get stuck on "Well, I gave a vow, but the other person is like,
I think Tim kind of spoke to that last night, because that's that part of that spiritual pathway of mastery as well, right? So you're doing the work, right? You're
yeah,
understanding who you are, you're getting into relationship with yourself. But if you're in a space where you're trying to force
mm-mm,
a relationship with someone else that is contradictory to the relationship with yourself, then
mm-hmm,
there's a step that has been missed, right?
yeah,
There's more work that needs to do right there, because and people say, "Oh, my vow." That's not what it is. That's an excuse, because we make vows all the time
all the
that we
time,
do not keep. So let's not
all
do
the time,
that. I said
yeah,
I was gonna go with you. I meet you at the place. I didn't meet you at the place. Your word is your vow. So that's not it.
yeah.
It's not the vow. It's not the promise. It's not the promise before God, because we are all have God inside of us. So every time you broke your word for something else, you broke it
You
before God.
still broke a vow.
So
Mm-hmm,
God wasn't just at that wedding ceremony.
yep,
Everywhere, so he's within and all around. So that's not it. It goes back to what I was talking about, of what part of you is that connection validating?
mm-hmm,
Is it the part, because I'm on my second marriage.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And so it was difficult. One of the things, as I do my work and reflect, that was hard for me to get to the point where I was like, okay, maybe we need to start moving in separate directions, was because being a vow breaker, being perceived as a vow breaker, right? but I keep my promises. Like that was a value to me. I keep my word. I give my word. I keep my
Yeah.
word.
Yeah.
And I gave my word, and I was gonna keep my word. I was
Yeah.
gonna stay in that thing,
Yeah.
just because of my own pride and the self image that I had of
Yes.
self.
Yeah.
And I was putting that image of myself above what I needed and wanted. And so it's something else going on. And that person would have to do the work. We have to figure out, well, what is it that either this relationship is validating for you, or the person is validating for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Something is going on there that's a connection that has not yet been tethered.
Yeah.
That needs to be
Yeah.
tethered.
I think, touching on it is that the perception or the image that we give other people, we want them to think we're like this. So
Mhm.
we're going to make this work come hell or high water,
Yeah.
but it's to our own demise.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? And so we literally sacrifice ourselves inside of that conversation.
Yes.
And that to me is not the path of spirit. You know what I mean? That's not the growth, because
No.
the universe would never ask us to be in something that limits our expansion.
Another part of being in a relationship with yourself is you really have to get to a space where you honestly don't care about what other people think or
Yeah.
say,
Yeah.
or you care little enough where you can still move through the fear of whatever it is they might think or say. Like
Mm.
your wholeness and your well-being becomes more important
Yes.
than what anyone else might think or say. If you're not there yet, then you may still have some, unhealthy tethers in relationship with others because you care what other people might think or say.
Yes. Yeah. So then do you think that there's usually something traumatic that happens that puts us on this path of self mastery, where we begin to assess and look inside ourselves? Because it seems like it's not that we grow up and somebody tells us that we need to do this.
Yeah.
So what was yours? What was yours that had you, or when did you become aware that you had decided to be on the path? And you probably, and not that you had to call it that. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So as far as being in relationship with myself, this is very recent. Like I've been doing this work of becoming in relationship with myself maybe since 2019,
Mm-hmm.
2019 for the pandemic, like really becoming aware that that's what was needed.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so I've been doing the work on myself since, 2012. But it
Right.
wasn't until 2019 that I really was starting to understand I need to do some work on myself, my relationship with myself. But I didn't
Mm-hmm.
know, like I said, I had no idea what that meant or what
Yes.
that would look like. It was just the weirdest thing to me. So like I said, I started this on this path on 2012, right? So between 2012 and 2019, it's like, well, what were you doing? You were
Right.
learning. If you weren't being in a relationship with yourself,
Knowledge, probably.
I was accumulating knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
but there were also some spaces where I was bypassing,
Say
right?
more about
I was
that.
bypassing.
Like
So,
like you knew you should, like you knew you should stop here and check it out, but you said, "Oh, I'm gonna do this."
well, I was using things as a crutch to not really get deep into the work.
Okay.
And so I really, so some people call it spiritually bypassing, like folks who, may use spiritual colloquialisms or sayings or things to deal with, I'm gonna let God handle it, I'm just gonna pray on it, right? Spiritually bypass the work.
Yes. Yes.
So and when I started doing a relation, getting into relationship with myself, I had all these tools that I had picked up along the way since 2012, right? I
Yeah.
had, I used tarot and oracle cards. They
Yeah.
were extremely helpful for me in opening up avenues and spaces in my maps, in my life quadrant.
Right.
You have your candle work, your rituals, your altar work, your
Yes.
crystals, and all of those things. And you have your coaches as well.
Yeah.
But sometimes you get to a point, Tim described it as letting the scaf. He said the scaffolding was
Oh,
taken.
wasn't that a great
Right?
analogy?
He
Oh
said it
my
was
goodness.
taken away. And
Yes.
so I'm going to say sometimes these things can become a crutch
Yes.
to you, because you're gonna go to your altar, you're gonna do the spiritual work, and yeah, you're gonna get your revelations, and you're gonna get all the
Mhm.
things, and it's gonna feel good. But something you're gonna do your shadow work, you're gonna go in that dark space, you're gonna get it out. But sometimes you need to be able to do the work in real time,
Yep.
right? And when we use those tools, we often use them in isolation. We go to our altar, we're
Mhm.
by ourselves. We're doing our rituals by ourselves. We're doing our shadow work by ourselves. And that is needed. But sometimes you need to be able to pick up what you're learning from that isolation time and apply it in
Oh,
real time, in
yeah.
real situations. And so I had to very recently just kind of slowly kick those crutches away.
Mm.
No, I love my crystals. I still have them. You know what I'm saying? I'm
Oh
wearing them
yeah.
today.
Oh yeah.
My candles I have, but I just had to step back. Like when I felt like, oh, you know what? Let me go light this candle. No, let me get connected to myself and
Yes.
figure this out. I stopped all my sessions with my coach.
Mhm.
I was like, "Mm, it's time. It's time
Yeah.
for you to remove this crutch. I have access to her
Yes.
whenever
Absolutely.
I need, and
Yes.
she'll be there for me.
Right.
But I have to move that crutch away. I still do my altar work. I still venerate my ancestors and all of that stuff, but not with the fervor like when I was feeling the dissonance, right?
Mhm.
And I want to go, let me go and do the thing because I know that it works. I had to move those crutches away.
Yeah, because you point to something that's very is very useful because what we tend to do is we look spiritual,
Mm-hmm.
or we act spiritual, but we're completely disconnected on the
Mm-hmm.
inside.
Yep.
And you see people wear the clothes and the all this, and then when you get close up on them, the energy doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel good. It doesn't feel clean, but they look very spiritual.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really great, Dr. Sandra. Yeah.
Yeah. And to that point, when you talked about like the look of things, so being aware when things are dysfunctional,
Yeah.
disjointed, right?
Mm.
Sometimes inside, like I don't know, I have felt disjointed sometimes, like
Mm-hmm.
within myself. I have the pieces, but they're not, something isn't fitting together, something isn't right. Those spaces in ourselves are the spaces we need to go in and figure out how to heal or to destroy. Right.
Mm.
We have to make those decisions sometimes. Is this, do I heal this or do I destroy this? Uh,
Absolutely.
I connected with, Goddess Kalima on my journey.
Mm-hmm.
She revealed herself to me. So like this whole beautiful destruction,
Mm.
I had to embrace that. I had to
Yes.
embrace the beauty of destruction and understand that destruction as part of being given life. Destruction
Absolutely.
gives life, is part of the cycle.
It
You
is part of the cycle because before you can build something, you first have to destroy. You have to have the chaos.
Oh, the chaos is so necessary.
So
Change
necessary.
happens in chaos. I was
Yeah.
at a way back in 2012. I was at this professional development training session. It was this organization they was doing. I work with schools that turnaround schools, right? So they were
Mhm.
coming in, getting rid of all the folks, bringing in the new folks. And I love this one graphic, and he had of what change looked like. And he was like, this is what happens before, and then this is what happens during change
Yeah,
before we get back here.
that's right.
And I was like, oh my God, I never thought of change like that. Change
Yeah,
is supposed to be uncomfortable.
that's
It's
right.
the energy of the number 5, right? It comes to
Yes.
disrupt,
Yes.
it comes to make things uneven and awkward and funky.
Hmm.
And we resist that because the human brain just wants ease and peace and familiarity all
Yep.
the time. We want
Comfort.
we want the comfort. We want the stability
Yes.
of the four
Yeah.
energy, right? We want that stability all the time, but we got to move from the 4 to the 5.
Yeah.
So
If
that
you
was to
if
the
you're
spirit.
going to ascend, if you're going to evolve, you have to. And you have to, part of our mastery is mastering those times,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely.
and not being afraid when they show up. Because when Pluto starts going through our chart, whether we notice it or not, Pluto is going to bring some chaos because it destroys, and then at the end it gives you a beautiful gift. But first it's going to tear some stuff up.
Yeah. And we have to be, and that's why being in relationship with yourself is so important. Because when you're in relationship with yourself when you've gotten to a comfortable space in your relationship with yourself,
Mm-hmm.
when you enter your season of chaos, like
Yes.
you're grounded, right? You
Yes.
have something when you're not in a relationship with yourself and you're in a season of chaos, honey, you don't know what to grab on. So you're trying to
You
grab on the other
screaming for
people.
help.
You're trying to grab
Absolutely.
on the things. You're trying to figure it out because you're just being tossed to and fro.
Yep.
But when you are in relationship with yourself, you have a grounding. And grounding for me is I have to ground. I have to because I have so much air.
Mm.
So I'm a Libra sun, I'm a Cancer moon, and I'm a Scorpio rising.
Mm.
I have nothing. And even in my second life progression, I can't remember what I think it was Aquarius and double Libra in my second life progression, right? So I'm just all air and water. And I did a reading with Timothy one year, and he was like, you got to ground yourself because you'll just
Okay.
float away. You just float away.
Yeah.
And so it was around the time I started working on being in a relationship with myself as well. So, I have these cosmic shifts going on
Yeah.
inside of me as well. And
Yeah.
so it was important. Like grounding is so important to be grounded in yourself,
Yeah.
not grounded in your relationship with someone else or
Right.
something else, whether it's food or whatever the case might be, but to be grounded in yourself. It's so critical.
One of my theories is that we keep saying that a lot of our people are mentally ill, but what I feel is missing is spiritual groundedness.
Mm-hmm.
People do not know how to breathe, just to center themselves. People do not know how to sit in solitude or silence. They panic when
Mm-hmm.
nobody's around or when they don't have their instruments, or their devices. So that spiritual groundedness is something that we get to practice on a daily basis when we are in connection with ourselves,
Mm-hmm.
when we are being aware of ourselves. And you described this so good earlier because you talked about, I can feel it inside, I can feel this going on, I can feel that going on. Yes, when you are that aware of yourself, okay, something is triggering me, let me be with this,
Mm-hmm.
instead of just getting your emotions all up and carrying you out the door.
Right. Then you got to do the work of coming back down and picking up all the pieces
Right.
and stuff you destroyed on the way.
Yeah,
It's too
making
much
it
work.
worse. Right.
It's too much work. I'm lazy. I don't want to do that.
I don't want, exactly. I don't want to create more mess when I already got mess.
Yes, I got enough. But breathing is so key. And I've heard that in every conversation this week, the breath work, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody is listening, they're trying to figure out, well, how do I start being in a relationship with myself? Like, what's the first thing I need to do? That breath work,
Yeah.
because that breathing begins to move that energy and open up places and point to places that you didn't even know were calcified inside of you.
Oh, that's a good word.
And it's so and the great thing about, like, when you start as a master force life coach, any life coach should know, the first thing you do is the breathe the center work, right? If
Yep.
you if you hadn't done breath work before and you come to master force, you start breathing, it's kind of like, okay,
That's
I
day
know how
one.
to breathe.
Right.
Yeah.
And everybody be like, I never
I
knew
need
I
to learn how
could
to breathe.
breathe. Right.
I ain't pay to breathe. It's like, what is this? This is scam.
This is so elementary.
Right. Breathing. But once you start doing it and you make it a part of your daily practice, it starts moving things. You don't even know things are being moved until
Mm.
you start continuing to do the work. But that's the beginning of awareness. It's
Yes.
the beginning of awareness. Allow your breath, your rhema, your spirit to become the beginning of your awareness of
Mm.
what you need to assess and be aware of. I didn't know for a long time that my heart had been hardened. And I had to do a lot of work around my heart chakra
Yes.
because I had protected it so. And I had to do work, and I could not do this work by myself. I was doing this work by myself. I met with my coach. My coach was like, "You need to actually go to see a counselor." And I found a therapist
8 o'clock.
Yes.
who does I think it's called blind spotting. I can't that
Yeah.
type of work. And
Mm-hmm.
I worked with her for 6 weeks, and it was a lot of visualization. You talk about
Yeah.
visualization, so
Yeah.
I could understand what was going on. And what I found was that around my heart chakra was a metal like hexagram
Mm.
with steel rivets all around, with like a little fox laying on top of it to protect it.
Where did fox come from?
I don't know, but it was there. So I had to, in the 6 weeks, I had to coax the little fox off, break open the steel box, and then do the healing. And what had happened was my mind and my heart were so disconnected. My mind had become a bully of my body because
Wow.
I'm so much air, right?
Yes.
I had bullied my heart into submission, and my mind told my heart that I am the one who decides the feelings and the emotions as opposed to being a processor. I had bullied my heart into submission. And I had to do the work to understand that I had done that to myself.
Yeah.
And the fox was the only thing to bring soothing to my heart, that otherwise I'd probably go crazy.
Mm-hmm. The purr.
Right?
Yes.
But
Mm-hmm.
it's like but breathing got me there.
Yes.
Breathing helped me know that it was just the breath, the air, it kept getting stuck. It was here.
Yeah.
And I was like, I don't know what's going on. And I had to go get help. And I had a
That's
whole
right. I had a similar experience when I was 35 and did the Landmark Forum. And I didn't realize until 35 that I literally had shut my heart down at the age of 5.
Mm,
So here it is for 30 years, and that was when my mom, was in a mental institution, right? And that whole thing. And for 30 years here, I then got married, then had 2 kids. Well, married, I was married, a widow, got married again, and was just like still being very rigid. Couldn't
mhm.
figure out what's going on. But baby, when I got in there and I started feeling something, and it was such a pressure that I just cried. I don't even
Mhm.
know what made me cry. I just started crying and let go. But then, Dr. Sandra, I had my head down on my lap because I was ashamed to let people see me cry.
Mm.
And so I'm sitting there, and in my mind, I'm going, "Why are you afraid to let people see you cry?" I'm having a conversation. The guy is up there talking to everybody, but I'm here having my own conversation.
Yep.
And I realized at that point that I had made up that crying was a weakness.
Yep.
And that's because I was bullied as a child. I was
Mhm.
bullied. After my mom got sick, I was around a bunch of bullies, and every time I cried, they shut up, you cry, so I would hide. And I
Mhm.
never cried on anybody's shoulders for 30 years. And when I finally heard the lesson that I was to get from that, it was that weakness can be a strength. Vulnerability can be a strength.
Yes.
And sometimes being strong can be a
Yes.
weakness.
Absolutely.
And that's when I began my softening process because I hadn't seen it. I hadn't seen it yet.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
then when I started looking back, I said, yeah, somebody asked me, can I help you? Nope, I got it.
Yep.
I can be struggling with the baby in my arm and 2 suitcases, no, I'm good. Now it's like, can you please come over
Yes.
here?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely. That strong, that strong, that personification of that strong characteristic. I have
Unnecessary.
I have said for the last several years, and I'm really talking to my Black women here, just
Yeah.
death to the strong Black woman.
Death to the strong black.
Death to the strong Black woman. I'm not. I'm vulnerable and I'm okay with it.
I'm open to receive.
Yes.
We need all the brother kings. I mean,
Yes.
and thank God they are around. I'm not
I
complaining.
know. Yes. Yes, carry that. Help me with that. Can't yes,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Learning how to say yes. Learning how to say
And
yes.
thank you.
It's so,
That's
and
it. And
thank you.
please. It's kind of like,
Hmm.
you know, and it's such a nurturing way to allow people to support you.
Yes.
It's not that they have to do much. Sometimes you just,
Exactly.
hey, can I come take out your garbage? Absolutely. Take
And
out.
then and did you notice Moot, when you figured out that it's okay to be vulnerable, how your relationship with others began to change when you begin to allow
Oh
others
God.
to connect back with you?
Yeah, because for the longest I was just alone. Even married, I was alone.
Hmm.
Even married, I was doing everything myself. I have to do it myself. But when you're in that type of, I love the vision that you gave about how your heart, because I feel like that's how mine, but I didn't have a box, but I didn't. I love that though. But to be that closed down, I felt,
Hmm.
and so nobody could get in there.
Yeah.
I don't care what you did, how good you were, that you couldn't get in there.
Hmm.
I had to literally open myself to that. And yeah, people, the abundance showed up,
Oh
Dr.
my
Sandra.
gosh.
The
The
abundance.
abundance just everywhere.
Okay.
It's like, oh, really?
Yeah.
And I had to get comfortable with the abundance being everywhere
Yeah.
because it was like I gotta do something. But,
Yeah.
but
Because
and
that's a whole nother level of play.
that's a whole nother level. And to
Yeah.
sit in that and I mean all of this comes out of being in a relationship with yourself, right? Because
Yes.
we're connected. We're connected with each other. We're connected with everything around us. So being in a relationship with yourself doesn't mean you're not being in a relationship with the universal energies or the universe of other
Oh,
people.
you
It
open
means
to.
you're strengthening those relationships to the
Yes.
ones that you're supposed to be in relationship with.
Yes.
Like once I started working on a relationship with myself, I can appreciate nature in a different way.
Yes.
Being out in nature, the elements. Like yesterday during the winter solstice, at first, this week had just been a whirlwind for me. In last week and this week, and I was like, the winter solstice is coming up. I want to enjoy
Yeah.
this time and this space, but I had to like clear things off my to-do list and clear things off my plate to
Yes.
make space for it.
Yes.
And last night I was like, you know what? I just wasn't in the mood for the holiday and the season and stuff. And I was like, I am going to honor winter. I'm just gonna
Mhm.
embrace winter. And
Mhm.
last night I was like, I'm just gonna curl up on my couch and I just want to sit here in the womb of the darkness of the longest night
Ooh,
and
yes.
just let it hug me and hold me.
Oh.
And I just laid on the couch and
Mhm.
fell asleep. And it was beautiful to just be
So
still.
beautiful.
And
Yes.
the purpose to be in the darkness, in the
Mhm.
womb of the solstice, and just let whatever it had for me and let it give it to me.
Yes.
But I don't get there without learning myself enough to know before that hectic pace
Mhm.
is what would have had my attention.
You would not have stopped it. You would
I
not
wouldn't
have
have stopped
paused.
it.
Yep.
And I would have been, and then I would have finished and been like, I'm so exhausted, I can't do anything else. But because I know myself well enough to know that I get energized when I honor the seasons,
Mhm.
I knew it was important for me, no matter how far I got on my to-do list, to make sure I take this opportunity to honor this solstice
That's so
and
wonderful.
honor this season. But I had to learn myself
Mhm.
of how I moved. And part of my being in a relationship with myself and knowing myself better was understanding that I have a seasonal flow and what each season meant for me
Yeah. Yeah.
and what I needed from each season. But again, if I'm busy trying to be the thing for others and do the thing for others, I can't connect that deeply with myself. You can get some surface level stuff, and surface level will take you, you know what I'm saying? You can coast off a surface level for a little bit.
But it's not the real thing.
It's not the real thing. I never connected. I'm not gonna say I never connected because I did connect to abundance and stuff, even at the surface level.
Yeah.
But the way that I'm connected with abundance and the universal energies, and like I'm having conversations like on a day-to-day basis, just
Opportunities are just
moment
good.
to moment with myself, my guys. Like I hear so clearly now. My
Yes.
first eye is beginning to clear. I'm just like, yo, this. If you haven't done it, I'm saying you get in a relationship with yourself. I'm telling you, that's
You,
it right
you know, there was a forum leader that said this. I forget where it was, but it was Jeff Wilmore, and he told us. He said, just because you are a high achiever does not mean that you are healed.
there. Amen to that.
And that comes with that whole self-validation piece. Let me just do more, get more, show more, demonstrate my stuff, show this, but it's not your peace.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
not your abundance, it's not your flow. Because you're still trying to what? Convince somebody that you are
yes,
somebody.
yeah. And
You
and there's a trapping that that is a trapping that we're programmed into.
We are, and especially Black women.
Oh my
We
gosh, yes.
we run all the corporations, but our children are at stake. Our men
Hmm.
are locked up. I say that all the time. Like, how? Why is this corporation more important than your family? And don't tell me about the money. And see, that's where that. But when we surrender to the internal work that you're speaking of, the abundance shows up.
It does. It absolutely does.
But it's not going to show up where you trying to convince somebody that you the shit. I'm the shit.
Yeah,
No,
yeah.
yeah.
And that work, and I do not believe that the work stops. I
No.
mean, maybe, I guess death maybe, but on this journey in the path, I believe that the work is iterative,
Yeah.
that it continues to go and show up in
Say
different
that word again because I like how that flows. Say it again. Iterative.
iterative.
Iterative. Okay.
It continues, right? And so, like, I did the work initially with myself, by myself, and then Spirit was like, you got to be the me and the we. And
Yeah.
so, I'm in this process now, and I'm getting better day by day of being me in relationship with others. Not
Mm-hmm.
and not just my husband, with my children. I have adult children. My youngest is 14, but I have
Mm-hmm.
adult children. That's a whole different.
A
It's a whole
whole
different
different realm.
aspect of parenting. With the way I show up at work, like one thing I got out of this work is connecting to my true authentic self,
Mm-hmm.
finding her, looking her in the face, and embracing her and affirming her and loving her, which I had not done before. And it's crazy because she's always been there supporting me,
Yes.
through the whole process, but I never recognized and honored her. So now to integrate her into who I am, and just to be able to show up and be my authentic self is just so relieving, And so that that work, so the work continues. And I gave those different contexts, but you're going to continue to have to learn how to be in relationship with yourself. Each context, whether it's as in your friendship, in your love relationships, in your parenting, provides a new opportunity for you to learn how to be in relationship with yourself in a different way.
Yeah.
And so that's how it's iterative. It keeps going. And you're gonna meet new people as you grow
Yeah.
and evolve. And then
Yeah.
you learn to be in relationship with yourself in a new way in that relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So it's you have to be open. Somebody talked about openness on the first day. It's
Yeah.
about being open
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
learning and not looking for the end to the learning. I think sometimes people are like, well, when is it gonna be over? It's not. So just like
When you die, okay, and we don't think it's over then either, because we think you just go to a different level of learning, and you get freed up from this suit. Now, is there something that you use daily that keeps you focused on the journey? Do you have, I heard you mention a little bit about what your rituals that you do rituals with it, but what do you do? What does your day to day look like to keep you focused?
So I have to do my daily scan. So my daily scan of my life quadrants, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I have to take stock, and it's not just in the morning, but it's moment to moment because things change in every moment of the day. And
Yes.
so before I react, or sometimes it's after I react internally, but as I'm reacting or before I react, I'm mindful of like where I am. So when I wake up, it's like I used to be very methodical with it. It was like, okay, what am I feeling? What am I thinking? What is my spirit saying to me? What is my body saying to me? And just kind of do a body scan. Now it's a little more organic. It happens, but I have to.
Mhm.
Then I have to make sure I'm grounding myself, and to
Yes.
ground myself, I do a little bit of breath work in the morning,
Yeah.
and I don't do a whole lot. Like maybe a minute,
Yeah.
maybe a minute of just some breath work to calm myself down and I have to slow myself down.
Mm.
Sometimes once my feet hit the floor, I'm gone.
That's it.
Some,
Yeah.
when my eyes open up and I'm laying in the bed, my
Yeah.
brain has already started
Your
processing.
mind is the wheels are turning.
Right, I'm double air now, right? So I have to be very intentional about making sure I'm grounded. And the breath work in the morning, that 1 minute, because I'm always worth a minute. That breath work in the morning can help me be grounded. The body scan helps me know what my baseline is for the day.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and then the self talk.
Yeah.
I have to do the self talk out loud. So if I got a thought that's kind of stuck or something happened, I have to say out loud to myself, not like to people around me, but like, you know what, I didn't like that.
Mm-hmm.
I have
Mm-hmm.
to hear myself say it. That helps a lot because I'm used to talking to myself quietly in my mind.
Mm-hmm.
So used to it, it doesn't resonate with me like the voice. I've learned that I'm auditory and I need to hear things
Yes.
back to myself.
Yeah.
And then I have to affirm myself every day because the work of moving away from external validation is continuous for me.
Mm.
Especially I think when you're trying to move in a professional space, like,
Oh,
or grow in a professional sphere. Because
yes.
if we're honest with ourselves, what are you really doing? You're really trying to get somebody to give you a stamp of approval to
Mm.
get that raise or the next title and stuff
Or
like
either don't say anything to me that's going to bother me.
exactly, right. So I have to affirm myself every morning,
Yeah.
and honestly the way that I do that is before I walk out of the bathroom and present myself outside of my bedroom. I look myself in the mirror. I just wink at myself and be like, you look, you doing it today. That's
Oh,
it. It really is that simple. And it's but that's a lot for me to even look at myself in the mirror
oh my God, yes.
and
I
able to
think we kind of grew up in some of those same conversations because my grandmother used to say, get out that mirror with your conceited self. We had one mirror. It was in the bathroom. Okay. If she came in my house now, she know I was really conceited because there's a mirror there, a mirror there, a mirror down there, a mirror over there, mirror in the kitchen.
but that self affirmation helps me continuously ingrain internal validation
Yes.
and move away from the need for external validation.
Yeah. Yeah. That's powerful. Yeah. And it's important to have that because everything around you can be a knocking up against you.
Mm-hmm.
Something is always pushing our buttons. So when you're grounded, it's like it just bounces right off.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, do you have any favorite quotes that you use or have used that keeps you moving?
Um, Not from anyone else is when I'm
Yours, yeah. Mm-hmm.
yeah. So like for me, what it is when I'm experiencing turbulence in relationship, like when my flight mode kicks in.
Mm-hmm.
It would kick in. When my flight mode kicks in, I say, you know what? Learn how to be the me within the we. I tell myself that you're learning how to be the me within the we right now.
Mm-hmm.
Don't walk away from it. Like I just remind myself, me within the we. You're being the me within the we right now.
You represent a lot of courage because what most of us don't realize that it takes courage to live. It's not it's not a normal capacity. Most of us are not courageous. We could be brave, like fake it, because we watch Superman and all those superheroes, but that's not the same thing as being courageous or having courage or pulling ourselves forward when it could be a very challenging situation that we could just turn away from. And those things can come up all the time, not
Yeah.
just in our relationships, but with our families, but at work,
Yes.
neighbors, and sometimes we just as easy curse somebody out and go and close the slam door. But
I
that's why
might
we
play
have
that out in
neighbors.
my mind.
You'll play it out here.
I might play it out of my mind as I get out of my system, but
No, because it's kind of like, and most of the time it's just like, and, this morning I was going to the grocery store, all the people on the corner, I'd be like, hey, good morning, they passing their little packages, hey, that's your life.
yeah.
I don't have nothing on it, and I just send love and light and keep walking. It took me a long time to get there because it
Mm.
used to be, oh, I'm going to walk the other way or
Mm.
I'm going to cross the street. All right. Now it's just like, hey, what's up? I'm going to let y'all get a little drip.
Love it.
Because in our neighborhoods and really, if we're the salt of the earth, when do you get to sprinkle it if you're not sprinkling it on those people?
Mm. Yes. I love that.
Yeah, so that's really, really crucial for us to be. It goes back to what I said. People need to see more master force. You know what I'm saying? So they can actually feel the essence, as Timothy was saying, of what we're,
Mm.
you know. So we're getting down to the wire. What would you say is your last? What are some of the things that you didn't say that you needed to say in this conversation?
So I did want to just share a couple of things I wrote down about how to dive into relationship work with yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So I would encourage anyone looking to dive into relationship work with themselves to create an altar to yourself.
Ooh.
So create an altar that the purpose of it is this is where you with yourself. And all the things that you would put on the altar, put the picture of yourself and the things that are important to you, that have meaning to you. Have a candle that you use. Tim mentioned a candle. Have a candle that you use just for connection with yourself. It can be a pink candle or a white candle. Use a piece of rose quartz. And when you are doing your work of connecting to yourself, or there's something you feel like you need to be seen or hugged or loved, or something that you're longing for, light your candle and focus on giving that thing to yourself. Greet yourself before you greet anyone else in the morning. So make
Mm-hmm.
sure you look at yourself in the mirror and say hello to yourself. Or if you're laying in the bed, say good morning to yourself. Tell yourself, Mary J. Blige, say good morning, gorgeous.
Good morning. That's what was going through my head when you were
Yes,
saying that. I love
absolutely.
that. Yes.
Greet yourself in the morning. Don't take your own presence for granted.
Ugh.
So say hello to yourself. Say something affirming to yourself, like I said, I do in the mirror in the morning in the mirror as well. If you feel resistance to that, you keep saying that affirming thing until that resistance begins to subside. Say how you feel out loud to yourself. Be honest. If it's something that oh, that felt really good, say it. Tell yourself that felt really good, or that you didn't like it. Tell yourself that, and then ask yourself why, so that you can learn about yourself on a deeper level. Tend to your wounds. Take the time to tend to your wounds. Do your shadow work. Tend to your mother wound. Make sure that you deal with those things that you have to deal with. Any violations that you feel like you have to acknowledge, and do the healing work. So tend to your wounds. Examine and assess the mirrors around you honestly. What is being mirrored back to you? Take a good look around to see what's being mirrored back to you. I also want to go on manual and get off autopilot. Sometimes we go
Yes.
our days on autopilot, because again, our brain likes comfort and familiarity. And turn autopilot off and feel and know in the moments. Practice that. Just practice feeling. And when you find yourself on autopilot, just stop and do a scan of what do you feel, what do you know right now, to kind of slow yourself down. Um, And then remember that relationships are extension of your relationship with yourself.
Mhm.
So that's back to that mirror work as well. So it's kind of like last things that I would want to share with everyone.
Oh, that is wonderful. I love the altar to self. That's a
Mhm.
beautiful, yeah. It took me years to realize that I literally stayed in a state of anxiety. Like there was always a pit in my stomach. And I was doing the breath work, and one day I realized that the pit was gone. And I said, okay, I got to remember this. I got to remember that this is what it feels like to not have that anxiety, right? I'd been with it all my life since I was a
Mhm.
child. It had been with me. So then when I finally, and I said, okay, and then it came back. And I said, oh, okay, I know that I can get there. And then again, I went back into the breath work. But
Mhm.
that awareness that you're talking about is that simple, but it's so important because we don't know what is normal for you. I would
Mhm.
have thought that anxiety, that pit in my stomach, that could have turned into something else had I let it stay for years and
Yeah.
years, right? But because I knew that it was abnormal and went to work on it, when it left, I said, ah, that is not supposed to be there in this. So I got to feel something different.
Mhm.
Does that make sense?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Sometimes our body mistakes our imbalance as a state of homeostasis, and we think that our
Yes.
imbalance is the baseline, is the norm, and it's not,
Yeah.
because we've lived with it for so long.
That autopilot.
That
Yeah.
auto
Mm-hmm.
so that you can realize, oh, this thing is really off kilter,
Yeah.
and then find your way back into true balance.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. Well, Dr. Sandra, I just have enjoyed talking with you tonight.
Okay.
I really have missed you. We need to
I
get some
miss you
time
too,
again.
Moot.
And I know it's so I get so moved by the people that are in my life. As much as people say you've learned from me, I learned so much from all of you, and you are a reflection. You reflect back to me the work that I've done, but also that I continue to do, and that's a very beautiful space to be in. So I just want to thank you for taking time out of your busy and contributives. You are contributing, I mean, just so much to the world, and I know that. Don't you have a book coming out or something
there, there is a book in my spirit
Well,
that I'm
yeah.
working on. I have some ideal babies that I'm trying to birth.
Okay. So yeah, but that's good. And I think you were just the cap that we needed to finish this week so that we can really ground ourselves inside of our me
Mm,
and find out that, this is where the true love is.
yes, absolutely.
This is where the true love is. So I didn't see any questions. Alanda, did we have any questions come across? Does anyone have anything? Um, no, I guess not. So yeah, I want to thank all the coaches this week. Farasha, Osara 10, uh, Dr. Tammy, Timothy, Dr. Sandra, just all of you have made a difference. And whether people were with us live or whether they watch it later on, this is huge information that they can use to further their growing in their spiritual work, as well as, how they relate to their family and their children. So thank all of you. And again, thank you, Alanda. We will see you all in the summer when we will come back with season 18 of Ignite Your Soul Connection. Until then, you can just look for us. Wait a minute. Tammy says, I have a question. Okay, Dr. Tammy, what is your question? Or maybe she was just, okay, there you go. Has the relationship with your husband gotten better as you've done your self work? Great question.
Yes, ma'am. All aspects of the relationship have gotten better since I've done my self work. And while I'm talking, I just want to say thank you, Moot. You also graced us on a day during this week and you've been imparting your knowledge and continuing to pour out all week with all of the guests. And so I was going to take a little liberty and speak on behalf of everyone who is receiving and say thank you. Thank you for showing up and with your seasoned wisdom. We definitely appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. And when you come to Chicago, you know I want to see you.
I know, I know.
All right. All right, Amanda, you can take us out. Good night, everybody. This has been an amazing week. Amazing week. I am full. I am grateful. And we'll see you in the summertime. All right. Good night.
Thanks for tuning in to the 17th season of Master Force Ignite Your Soul Connection, crafted by Mu Shemsu-t Stewart, the visionary and the driving force behind Master Force Life Academy. I'm Alonda Gregory from Tri-Phoenix Media. I'm so honored to have served as the producer for the 17th season of the online conference. If you're seeking details about our courses or want to explore past seasons and episodes of Ignite Your Soul Connection, don't hesitate to reach out to Mu Shemsu-t, and her email is mushemsut@gmail.com. That's mushemsut@gmail.com. Your interest is truly valued. So stay connected and may your soul forever be ignited.